Okay, right. Just in case he doesn't manage to make it back on, or if he's got one of those funky laptops that's been plugged in all year, and the minute you unplug it, the battery's now frazzled. So just a warm welcome to everyone in the group. I'm Kurt Ryan, and obviously you got Neil, who you saw, and yeah, just to say we've got a really cool agenda today. So we've got Stuart Hayles from Tenancy, who's going to run through the integration with Windows Virtual Desktop and also Teams as well. And Jordi van Drunen, right? I hope I said that right. Which is going to run through the software packages and image management with Azure DevOps. And we all know Azure DevOps is always a hot topic. So great to see those. And then we'll open up the floor for any Q&A. Obviously, we're a community. We know that an important part of what we do is not just talking to you, but it's also, collaborating and getting some great conversations going on between all of us and seeing what people are up to, what you're doing, and everything else. So I'll start off by introducing Neil. You briefly saw Neil then. Neil, of course, is an MVP. I think it comes as no shock to anyone when it comes to enterprise mobility. Obviously, a very well-known name in this space. Spent many years in IT, and very proudly worked over at Nerdio, who we know are pretty awesome with everything they do, regards to Windows Virtual Desktop and stuff. And he's their UK field CTO. He's co-founder of the WVD community. I'm obviously the other one as well. So for the UK one. And if you want to catch up with anything that he's doing, you can catch him on Twitter, on his blog, which I know his own personal blog was on there, was it? virtualmank.co.uk. I think he used to say sometimes it isn't necessarily up to date, but you can always see him active in wvdcommunity.com and the things he does. He's always putting newsletters and things out as well. And we've obviously got some members here that are also members of the wider Windows Virtual Desktop community too. You can catch him on LinkedIn, and if you do want to email him, there's his email address as well. And obviously you got me, so I'm Kirk. I'm a principal technologist. I also juggle many hats, like most people these days for some reason. I'm a co-founder and CTO of my own startup, Busby. So if you ever go cycling, running, walking, and want automatic incident detection, then come have a chat with me because it's free. I'm an MVP for Microsoft Azure. I have a blog, which sometimes is more active than others, but it's had a bit of an April Fool's joke on it today. So you can see that in Kirk in the .cloud. I'm active on YouTube, and I'm also very active on Twitter as well. And I try to share as much open source stuff as I possibly can. So projects, things I've done, customer things, I try and put them all on my GitHub as well. So next time I'll pop my GitHub repo on there as well, so you can see some cool stuff I've done there. Just to set the scene. So if you're new, a warm welcome. Welcome to the community. We meet once per month. It's the first Thursday of every month. We share the latest Windows Virtual Desktop news and any hot topics across. We do use Teams, and we do record. And just to make sure everyone knows, we are recording the session. I don't have the capability to stop the recording. Usually we would offer to pause if there's anything sensitive you wanted to discuss, but for today we won't be able to do that because Neil's in control of the meeting, and I don't have the capability of stopping it. So it will be recorded. Slides will be made available after the event as well. And fingers crossed, I know we're over in Q2 now, that when we are able to get back to physical events, we will be having and promoting physical events as well. We think it's always great to do things face to face. But I don't think we're going to lose the digital bit, because we love the fact that we can get people from well outside the usual catchment area of a group like this. And it's been fantastic, both in speakers and just general community and participants that we see that are able to join and benefit from a lot of the knowledge shared by some great presenters and great community members as well. And on that note, really a big call out to action. We really want you. So if you've got any information, you worked on a project, you got anything to share, you've got the knowledge and insights and any sort of hints or tips that you'd like to share with the community, then please feel free to reach out, and me and Neil are more than happy to either offer you a slot. If a talking's not your thing, we will present for you. We can do any of that. So please feel free to reach out to us, and really happy to share the knowledge within this group as well. And on the message of sharing, obviously talking these days, you can jump on Slack as well, which is obviously great. We've got the link here, communityinviter.com. Just you can join there as well, and it's a very active community. I can't remember how many members it's up to. I think it's pretty impressive now. But yeah, there's always a lot of good, knowledgeable people on there that are more than willing to help you out with anything that you want to discuss. Okay. So with that in mind, we will be getting to the first of our presenters, and I hope I got this the right way around. So Stuart, are you with us?
I am. Yes, Kirk. Thank you.
Excellent. So a warm welcome. I'm going to stop sharing.
Sure.
And you should be able to share.
So I'll share my screen.
Brilliant. Yeah, we see that perfectly.
Excellent. So thank you very much then, Kirk. So good evening, everyone, and I hope all are well currently with the current situation. And although Neil is absent, thank you for also allowing us to participate in tonight's session. So I'll get straight into it. I am genuinely really excited to be here this month with what we have to demonstrate to you this evening. So whilst we have a PowerPoint to refer to, the key, oh, you can't actually see it, can you? You can't see the PowerPoint, so.
Oh, right. No, I thought that was the PowerPoint. We can see it. Is
no.
That your desktop?
Yeah, so there we go. So there we go. That's the PowerPoint there. So actually, just one moment also. Let me just change one setting when I shared the desktop for when I do demonstrations.
I think you got a very modern color scheme, by the way. I'm going through a branding exercise right now, and I like it.
So. Thank you. So now you should see that again. Right, let's try again. So I'm genuinely really excited to be here this month with what we have to demonstrate to you this evening. So whilst we have this PowerPoint that you can see now, the key items I have to show is through some demonstrations of what we can offer for our partners when implementing either Linux-based or Windows 10 IoT thin clients with WVD. So some of what you will be seeing tonight is hot off the press and only being announced by Tenzig today. And we are too late for any April Fool's jokes there as well. So a quick introduction about myself. I am Stuart Hayles, a member of the pre-sales team at Tenzig based here in the UK, covering the EMEA region. So I am a relative newcomer to VDI, but have worked in IT for over 20 years in two prior roles as a VoIP product specialist for NEC Enterprise Solutions, and also prior to this as an IT manager at Shepshire Building Society. So for those who may not be aware of Tenzig before today or what we do, Tenzig is a solely focused thin and zero client vendor, meaning we understand all there is to know around graphics and audio remoting from on-premise setups to more recently cloud-based deployments. This has been ramping up even more recently thanks to Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure. So we're headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, with our EMEA office based in Leicester, the UK. Tenzig have been a long-standing Microsoft partner in offering Windows Embedded and Windows 10 IoT-based solutions, but I am also pleased to announce and add to this that from this week, Tenzig are also a Linux thin client certified partner for Windows Virtual Desktop specifically. So you can read more about this using the link at the bottom of this slide, which will take you to the press release on our website. Tenzig is built and grown upon excellent customer service, and this is why customers buy from Tenzig again and again, as you can see from our website testimonials, also with the link at the bottom of this slide here. So now you know the who on Tenzig, it's also important to cover briefly the why Tenzig. This is a question we are often asked as an endpoint vendor, and there are plenty of us around right now. It's much more than just looking at the endpoint as far as hardware specifications. This is relevant very much for our partners and MSPs who want to be able to offer their customers a pain-free option as far as endpoints for attachment to Windows Virtual Desktop. So some key words here: free and uncomplicated. Our hassle-free evaluation or trial program is available to all our customers. You can take a pick from our wide range of endpoints and test them against your most common types of users with your most critical or demanding requirements to ensure they are ideally suited for each use case at no risk financially. Enterprise cloud management is free with no hidden ties in usage. Our range of x86-based thin and zero clients are all equipped with a 3-year advanced exchange warranty, meaning we ship replacements ahead of you returning to base. And finally, we offer free product training tailored to your individual requirements, which is extended with access to our certified sales and support teams, including pre- and post-sales support. So let's briefly cover our range of endpoints available for WVD deployments. We offer both Linux and Windows 10 IoT-based endpoints, more of which we will see in a moment. There are a wide range of form factor options also for all use cases, and these are powered by either Intel and AMD processors. So you can find full details on all our endpoints through our website, but if you wish to speak to someone directly about your requirements and the best endpoint to fit those needs, please get in touch with us using the contact details at the end of the presentation, and I'm sure we will be more than happy to help you further. So the Tenzig Manager is our Windows-based centralized management tool, which can be hosted anywhere, including either on-premise or in Azure. The Tenzig Manager is included with all Tenzig endpoints and remains 100% free, as mentioned earlier, regardless of the number of endpoints or features required. This is now actually quite unique in this marketplace. This brings me to an important topic to discuss for our clients, which is remote management via the Tenzig Manager. This includes remote management capability through our Cloud Connector, which is a component of the Tenzig Manager server. It provides businesses an integrated strategy for remote management of employees' endpoints, which also provides IT teams the capability to remotely provision and configure their endpoints automatically or manually. Also, the ever important requirement to shadow employees' devices providing remote support is available. So the management tool can be installed either on-premise or cloud-based using a Windows virtual machine as a host. And using the Tenzig Manager, we can provide ongoing firmware updates for features and security updates to the endpoints. The resounding feedback from our Tenzig community is that the tool is simple to use and pain-free. Our YouTube channel at the following link has some comprehensive videos covering these features, including the ever-important remote management. So let's look at how this plays out in a couple of common remote management scenarios. The Tenzig Manager is component-based, where components can either be installed on the same server or separated dependent on load and infrastructure. A typical use case as seen here is that all components of the Tenzig Manager are installed to a Windows-based VM within Azure. In this environment, the endpoints are pointed towards the Cloud Connector. The endpoints can discover and register to our Cloud Connector automatically if using Managed DNS by creating an SRV record. Alternatively, as seen here, components of the Tenzig Manager are installed on-premise. Components including the Manager server and consoles are installed on the inside network. Then for enablement of remote management, the Cloud Connector is installed to a separate server instance in the DMZ. And this provides us with the remote management capability for on-premise environments, whilst providing security with a clear demarcation between the internal and external networks. Tenzig NOS is our leading Linux-based platform marketed as a zero client. This means it's designed from the ground up to be the simplest solution for delivering access to virtual desktops and applications. The OS is fully secured and finely tuned for remote delivery of graphics, audio, and USB peripheral attachments. Our approach is to make the user experience simple from setup to usage. So via our 3-step simple setup GUI, Tenzig NOS is a zero client style kiosk user interface by default, taking the complexity out of creating various profiles and settings to hide the local operating system away from your users. We try to empower the user's access to local tailored settings such as keyboard, mouse, whilst hiding access to other administrative settings. Importantly, this includes the restriction of local application install and changes, as well as having zero access to local files. NOS can be automatically deployed, updated, and managed using the Tenzig Manager server. So what I would like to do now, and really happy to demonstrate to you for the first time since our announcement earlier today, is our NOSM operating system being used to connect to a WVD environment. And for this, I am going to remotely shadow a device using our Tenancy manager server. So I'm going to start this demonstration off in the Tenancy manager server MMC console, as you can see here. So we've got a number of devices already registered within the console, and over time these can accumulate. So we can also group them down the left-hand side here so that we can manage those devices more easily by assigning templates and firmware to be able to update those devices automatically. So let's start with our NOSM endpoint. We're going to right-click here and then go to VNC to remotely shadow this device. And if I bring over that window, we can then see the initial configuration wizard for the NOSM endpoint as it would be once you've taken it out of the box and booted it up on your network. So the first thing we're going to configure on here is the region for where the device will be deployed, which will just set the keyboard configuration and also the time zone information for the device. So I'll just find Great Britain for the UK. And then we have to specify the date and time. So 10:34 currently. Press OK. And then it brings us into the application configuration screen, which for NOSM, because it is a software-based zero client, it is tailored specifically for Microsoft Virtual Desktop environments. So if you go to the connection type, you've got options here for traditional RDP connectivity, but we're going to leave that set to Windows Virtual Desktop in our case. You've also got the Fee Discovery URL option, so you can choose between the classic fall 2019 environment or the later ARM Spring 2020 release. There's also an option to enter custom URLs, so this might be used at some point in the future, but we may also add additional fee discovery URLs if they become available at some point also through firmware updates. So for the moment, I'm going to set that to WVD Classic for my test environment. And then down here, what we can also do to automate the process more for the user, if it is the same user that's going to be logging into the device on a consistent basis, you can specify their username and password details in here already. And then from the initial login screen, which we will see in a moment, all the user has to do is press the login button to automatically log into their WVD environment. So just for a basic connection, I'm going to leave that disabled. I am going to enter the domain part of my user ID just to make it more simple moving forwards. So just enter that detail in there. And then we're going to leave the settings pretty much default and go back to the initial login screen. So again, it's important to stress from the user's perspective, it is kept as simple as possible in configuration and also in usage. So all they will see when the device boots up is this initial login screen. Behind there is normally a background which you can assign your own wallpaper to, and also you can customize this Microsoft logo here just so that the device is more fit into your corporate image guidelines. Now we can see the domain field is listed here with the parameter we just entered, and along the bottom here we've got options for getting to the power options of the device, also to get back to the main control panel, and then also some more user specific functions. So we could connect to a wireless network, assign our displays to be used with the devices, and set our audio, keyboard and mouse settings depending on the user's requirements. So let's just log in using my username and password. And it will start the authentication process. So I am actually using multi-factor authentication currently. So now it's asking me for my code. So just open up my application and find my code. So enter the details. And once that is authenticated successfully, then you will be displayed with any resources or workspaces and application groups that you've got available to you. So in this instance here, I've just got a single desktop and a number of different applications that can be loaded. So let's just log into this desktop, which, as you can see, the connection is actually quite quick. And there we are. We are now logged in and ready to be able to use our WVD desktop. So let's quickly log back out, and I'll just show you some of the other options that are available to us. So let's quit here and back to the control panel, Microsoft Remote Desktop Settings. So what I could also do is specify to cache the username of the last user that logged in on the device if I wanted to. And then we've also got here Windows Virtual Desktop Preferences. So I won't go through all of the items we've got configurable right now, but some things just to highlight in here. Autocon if single. So if you only had a single desktop or application resource available to you, when the user logged into the WVD environment, this would automatically be connected to upon connection. You can also specify a desktop or application by name to automatically load. So let's try that then. So I'm going to enter the Excel application to automatically run, but then we've also got this option here to hide the resource list. So from the user's perspective, they won't see that window which we previously just saw that also lists the other applications and desktops, that resources that we've got available to us. So let's press OK, go back to the login screen, and then enter my details again to log in. Again, it will ask me for my authentication. Which has just changed. So now, because we've set that mode to automatically connect to a named application or desktop, it has directly loaded Excel now. So it is a much more automated feel for the end user. Okay, so going back into the control panel then, something else to highlight on that same Windows Virtual Desktop Preferences screen is for user password management. So the actual remote desktop client doesn't allow for the user to be able to modify their password for their account. So what we have done here is, if you enable this allow password change option, if I just press OK and go back to the initial login screen, it adds this additional icon now at the bottom of the window. So if I click this icon, it will basically open up a Kiosk browser to the Azure Change Password web page, so that the user can then modify their password as required. So I won't do that now, but it just gives you an indication of that process. Just quickly then, so that's shown really the functionality of logging into WVD from the NOSM endpoint. Let me just quickly show you. So we've got here also hardware for peripherals that we've got connected to our endpoint, and we've also got system functions here for loading certificates onto the device, also for the cloud management aspect, but also just to lock down the device, we've also got security settings. So in here we can specify a password to restrict access to the full control panel, but still allow the user to be able to have control over certain aspects of their desktop space. So for example, they can manage their displays, also their sound settings. You could specify network properties if they were a home worker and wanted to configure their wireless network, and then power options here as well. So just press OK and then go back to the login screen. So you can see here it has slightly changed. So we've now not got the mouse and keyboard items listed, but the user can still go in and modify these items here. However, if they try and access the full control panel, then it is password protected now. So it has secured the server-side configuration on the client. Now, all of these settings, once they are configured on the client side, can then be exported into the Tenzig Manager and deployed to a group, so that when devices are automatically registered into the manager, that template is assigned to them and they will be configured in exactly the same way as this device we've seen here. Okay, so that really demonstrates the first public preview of our NOSM operating system, which, as mentioned earlier, is just being announced today. So hopefully that has been a little bit informative for you. But whilst Linux-based thin clients are ever relevant and in hot demand with ease of deployment and management, we find there are still many use cases best suited for a Windows 10 IoT-based client. So particularly when used with a fast-evolving product such as Windows Virtual Desktop. Tenzig have many years' experience in the world of Windows IoT, or as it was known before, Windows Embedded. As of today, Windows Virtual Desktop offers the greatest feature set via the Windows-based client. So this includes support for features such as remote apps that appear seamlessly displayed to the user alongside their locally installed apps. Collaboration support is extremely important currently, and as of now, platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom offer AV redirection, whereby the audio and video devices are encoded directly at the endpoint. And also full port redirection, offering the greatest flexibility and wide support of various USB peripherals, either via USB redirection or other redirection methods for peripherals, including printers, scanners, and more. So we often see demand for web apps also alongside the remote apps or desktops via WVD. So now featuring Microsoft Edge, along with freedom to use Chrome browser, Firefox, or other popular browsers, there is wide support also for web apps on the user's endpoints. Tenzig also offer pre-installed tools for simplifying the securing of Windows 10 IoT by supplying features such as the UWF wizard, as well as image management and remote management features, which we'll see in a little while also. So since we're currently seeing the largest growth in demand for WVD on Windows 10 IoT-based thin clients, I will cover here briefly some best practice recommendations when using these endpoints. But if you do wish to discuss any of these in further detail with us, please either ask a question in the chat and we can follow it up further offline, or please do get in touch with us directly after the session. So it's really important to fine-tune your Windows 10 IoT image for the purpose ahead by removing any unnecessary applications. So our stock VDI Windows 10 image will contain the suite of different VDI environments clients. So if you're not utilizing some of those clients for those environments, then we can strip them out of the operating system image. But provision any additional applications or drivers and services as needed. So if you do want any local applications installed, then this is the time to do it at the imaging of the device. But once your image is ready, simply clone it via the Tenzig Manager, and this image can then be deployed to other endpoints as a compressed image file, or as if on request, used by contacting Tenzig, we can pre-image the clients at production from the factory. So it's also important to consider automating the user's connection at startup. So consider the shell launcher, which provides a kiosk-based access to the Windows desktop client. This is recommended in an environment where the user only requires access to WVD and nothing more. If you're using a mixed application environment, you can leverage auto login as a thin client user, and the thin client user is a pre-configured account with restricted access to the device. Last but by no means least, what do you need to do to secure the client? So with Windows 10 IoT features, we have the unified write filter, and this can be used to restrict write access to the drive and can also be configured to exclude specific areas of the file system and registry to give flexibility as needed. As touched on briefly above, there is the shell launcher, which again can be used in place of the regular Windows Explorer shell, and this can provide kiosk access to the WVD client, restricting all other access to just the administrator. For antivirus, Windows Defender is integrated by default and can be tuned to work alongside the unified write filter above. Alternatively, if your policy dictates you can install any third-party AV applications, then you can tune the UWF as required. And finally, for Windows updates, we find for some customers, particularly if the endpoint falls outside of scope of the company infrastructure, that leveraging UWF and shell launcher can mitigate the need for the same Windows update frequency of regular PCs and laptops. However, with Windows 10 IoT, this can still fall into line for tools such as SCCM, WSUS, etc., or just handled by the OS itself. Again, the UWF filter can be configured accordingly. So before I do wrap up this session, I will lastly show you WVD working on our Windows 10 IoT device, and in particular Teams being optimized on the endpoint and how to set it for a kiosk way of working using the shell launcher. So here we are now shadowing our Windows 10 endpoint and logged in as the administrator account. So with the administrator account, by default, it will automatically load the Tenancy Quick Start wizard, which you can see displayed here. But we're going to skip over that for the moment and log into the remote desktop client so that we can look at Teams and the optimization aspect with that regards to the endpoint. So just open up the remote desktop client and load this desktop. Enter my password. And now we are logged in to the WVD admin desktop. So I'm just going to open up here Microsoft Teams. And just to show that we are actually using WVD optimization, let's just go to the About and then Version and just check that that is enabled, which it is. So let's just make a call from Dan to the WVD admin. So the call is coming in. So let's just answer that. And I'll just mute the mic so there's no feedback. So you can see me now, and there's two displays of me because I am actually making both of these calls at the same time. Now, the video quality aspect itself, probably don't read into too much of that from this demonstration because we are actually shadowing the endpoint anyway, so it won't give you a true reflection of the true picture of the video quality. But just look at the task manager within the virtual desktop itself. And if we just look at the users, so currently I'm logged in as Dan, WVD admin. And you can see here that Microsoft Teams, even though we are actually running this video call, is actually using very little resource on the Azure virtual machine. So this is a great benefit in reducing cost overhead with your CPU and processor utilization within the cloud. So let's just close down that task manager there. We can also just demonstrate that the optimization is working just by moving the window around, and we can see that the video which is being overlaid from the client is trying to catch up with the window as we do move it. So let's just window that and go back to the client and look at the task manager here. And although the utilization is displaying 100% there, don't read again too much into that because we are actually shadowing the device also, which is putting some overhead on there. But if we look at the individual administrator account and the remote desktop application specifically, you can see that around 40% CPU usage is being used for the video processing on the client side. So in total, the CPU overhead is around 70% on average that you can see displayed here. So the endpoint is handling that video quite comfortably and the performance is relatively good, which unfortunately you can't fully see with the way that this demonstration is working. But let me close that call down for the moment, and what we will then do is look at how to set up the client to be able to do a kiosk mode to automatically run the remote desktop client for the thin client user to give a more automated feel for the users themselves. So we'll disconnect from the remote desktop client, and we're back now at the main desktop on the endpoint and looking at the Tenancy Quick Start wizard. So just a couple of things to mention whilst we're on here. Actually, if we go into the system tray down here, we can right click.
Stuart, you're muted right now.
Yeah, Stuart, I think you might have gone on mute.
So let's jump back in there.
There you
Here
go.
we are now shadowing our Windows 10 endpoint and logged in as the
So
administrator. I think unfortunately, because originally I only had a 30-minute window, I pre-recorded these demonstrations a little bit earlier on. Count that is going to replay the whole video that you'll see in there. So here we are now shadowing our Windows 10 endpoint and logged in as the administrator account. So with the administrator account, by default, it will automatically load the Tenancy Quick Start wizard, which you can see displayed here. But we're going to skip over that for the moment and log into the remote desktop client so that we can look at Teams and the optimization aspect with that regards to the endpoint. So just open up the remote desktop client and load this desktop. Enter my password. And now we are logged in to the WVD admin desktop. So I'm just going to open up here Microsoft Teams. And just to show that we are actually using WVD optimization, let's just go to the About and then Version and just check that that is enabled, which it is. So let's just make a call from Dan to the WVD admin. So the call is coming in. So let's just answer that. And I'll just mute the mic so there's no feedback. So you can see me now, and there's two displays of me because I am actually making both of these calls at the same time. Now, the video quality aspect itself, probably don't read into too much of that from this demonstration because we are actually shadowing the endpoint anyway, so it won't give you a true reflection of the true picture of the video quality. But just look at the task manager within the virtual desktop itself. And if we just look at the users, so currently I'm logged in as Dan, WVD admin. And you can see here that Microsoft Teams, even though we are actually running this video call, is actually using very little resource on the Azure virtual machine. So this is a great benefit in reducing cost overhead with your CPU and processor utilization within the cloud. So let's just close down that task manager there. We can also just demonstrate that the optimization is working just by moving the window around, and we can see that the video which is being overlaid from the client is trying to catch up with the window as we do move it. So let's just window that and go back to the client and look at the task manager here. And although the utilization is displaying 100% there, don't read again too much into that because we are actually shadowing the device also, which is putting some overhead on there. But if we look at the individual administrator account and the remote desktop application specifically, you can see that around 40% CPU usage is being used for the video processing on the client side. So in total, the CPU overhead is around 70% on average that you can see displayed here. So the endpoint is handling that video quite comfortably, and the performance is relatively good, which unfortunately you can't fully see with the way that this demonstration is working. But let me close that call down for the moment, and what we will then do is look at how to set up the client to be able to do a kiosk mode to automatically run the remote desktop client for the thin client user to give a more automated feel for the users themselves. So we'll disconnect from the remote desktop client, and we're back now at the main desktop on the endpoint and looking at the Tenancy Quick Start wizard. So just a couple of things to mention whilst we're on here. Actually, if we go into the system tray down here, we can right click and we've got our unified write filter configuration wizard here as well. So again, we can set the shell launcher for different users, and if this was joined to our domain, then it would automatically pull down any users from our Active Directory also. We can also set up the unified write filter and set exclusions, customize the loading screens, boot screens of the endpoint, and also set keyboard filters for system functions and also specific applications, so they are restricted when the user is using the actual device itself. So let's from the main wizard just click the next button, and what we're going to do is go to the personalization tab. So you can see here in this wizard, we've got multiple tabs for the different VDI environments for being able to set those up quickly. But I'm just going to pop to personalization. So we're using Show Launcher version 2 because the remote desktop client is actually a universal Windows program. So to be able to open up multiple windows, it has to be using the Show Launcher version 2, which we are doing. Now, the first thing we need to do is set a default shell so we can recover the system using the administrator account if need be. So what I'm going to do is just select the explorer.exe for this, and then set default shell there. So I'll just say yes at that prompt. Now it's asking me to reboot, and I'll just say no there, and we'll hold off on doing that for the moment. So now what we're going to do is specify a custom shell for the thin client user, so that when that user is loaded automatically, it loads the remote desktop client also. So again, click on Open File, go to the C drive, Program Files, Remote Desktop, and navigate down to MSR DCW. And we select that exe there. Let's add the shell. So I say yes. Would you like to reboot now? No, again. So the last step in this process is basically to tell the client to automatically log on as the thin client user. So on the desktop here, we've got some useful little shortcuts for setting this purpose. So just click on thin client auto log on and hit the Y key. So now the device is restarting. It will boot back up and should log in as the thin client user automatically and display the remote desktop client that we saw previously.
Okay, I think that is that everything, Stuart?
No, it is loading up at the minute. It's still booting into thin client user.
There we go.
So now we see the remote desktop client is refreshing the feeds for my user. So let's just log into the desktop again. This time. Into my authentication code. So previously, if you weren't using the Show Launcher version 2, these windows that are appearing now wouldn't operate. So it would basically just crash the application. And there we go. So now we're logged back into our WVD virtual desktop. So that's a quick overview really of the WVD optimization working on the endpoint, but also just quickly setting up a kiosk presentation of the Windows 10 IoT device to the user. Okay, so that is ended now, and just to explain there, apologies for that IT hiccup there. Basically, we were late to the schedule, and I think we only had, Kirk, I believe, a 30-minute window originally, and then today we were actually told that there had been a cancellation. So to try and make sure that we were going to hit that 30-minute window, we pre-recorded those parts of the demonstrations a little bit earlier today. So I think someone must have mistakenly put me on mute there, because it certainly wasn't done by myself. So no issue anyway. So With that, I'll wrap my session up for this evening, and I hope what you have seen has been informative. And if there are any questions or inquiries, then please feel free to pop them into the chat, or if you wish to discuss further with Tenzig after this session, please feel free to get in touch with us and using these details that you can see here. Other than that, appreciate you all listening this evening, and have a great bank holiday weekend and Easter break.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Stuart. And, thank you for the presentation. It reminded me of an article I read, the CNET one, and I don't know if anyone's seen this.
Yeah.
I think I have seen that also, that article, Kurt, to be fair. So, it's a life lesson there.
It was really good, actually, because I didn't even know you'd recorded it. I was just watching along, and then I thought, hang on, have I just time warped?
Yeah, you could see it in the top bottom on the timer in the clock.
Yeah.
And the audio quality was a little bit off in
That's
comparing
right.
with the live audio.
Yeah,
it was brilliant, honestly. So I appreciate that as well. And thanks for I know you had a very tight schedule to start with, which is great. So thanks for that. Are there any questions that anybody would like to ask Stuart before we bridge into our next session? And if not, Stuart, everyone's got your contact details there, right? So yeah, that's great. If you've got any personal ones that you want to drop in, feel free to drop them in the chat, and everyone can catch up there.
Yeah, I'll put on my email details there.
Cool. All right. Well, again, thanks for that. So that's brilliant. That brings us to the next presenter of our meeting, Jordi.
Yes.
So take it away, Jordi.
Okay. I think you can see my loading screen. Yeah, there we are.
There we go.
So today we're going to start talking about software packages and image management, especially in case with the Azure DevOps. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jordi van Drunen. I'm 33 years old. I live in the Netherlands in Oudenbosch near Roosendaal, Breda. I'm a senior platform engineer at VMware ICT. I'm a colleague of Stefan Dingelmanse. I'm an all-round engineer. I'm already 14 years in IT and doing generally everything from scripting, servers, network, everything. The last couple of years I've been focusing on automating image management, deployments, Azure, DevOps, and I'm liking it so much, even doing presentations right now. Last year I've been focusing a lot about WVD, and especially in deployments. And Stefan, introduced me, I think, beginning last year into WVD with everything around it. And I'm a guy who likes to do things once, so that's why I started scripting and automating the deployment of WVD hosts. Today, we'll be showing you how we are doing software packages, especially at VMware ICT, and how we automate software installations. And we're doing this fully automated because we don't want to do the installation of an image manually. And there are a lot of great examples of how to do image management, but all of them lack the application part. That's what I'm going to show you tonight. The second part will be image management itself. So how are we doing it? Which pipelines are we using? Are we doing it in Classic or in the YAML pipelines? And I'll be showing you some demos about it. So first, we have a software package repository, and we call it a repository, but it contains a lot of Azure artifacts, repos, and Azure pipelines. In the basic, what we have two Git repos, one which will contain installation scripts that are based on a template, and a second one that contains binaries. We also are creating pipelines that are automatically downloading the binaries. So think of MSC installation files from Chrome, Adobe, 7-zip as examples, Notepad, whatsoever. We can fully automate them and download them and process them in our pipelines. The first stage in everything we are doing with the software packages is obviously we create a custom script and we upload the binaries to our Git repo. We sign the sources there and we upload them, so they cannot be modified in this process. The second step will be signing the binaries, and the third one will be signing the scripts itself. After we have signed everything, we're going to make sure that everything works and is tested before we upload it to production. With testing, I mean, we want to make sure that our test script contains our template or our functions that we build specifically for our packages. We test if the application installs. So we can spin up a VM and install the application and test if it's installed correctly. And if all the tests are okay and without any issues, then we upload the application to our Azure Artifact repo. We also have a pipeline that will deploy and release packages to our Microsoft Deployment Toolkit suite. We generate exe files, which contains the 7-zip, the PowerShell, all signed, obviously, and we can use that to install the application with an engineer that has it with them or from OneDrive. We also have a upload to Intune, so we can upload packages we have already packaged directly into the Intune portal, which can be deployed to multiple portals from our customers or directly to our own. Those are the basic steps in the pipeline. Most of them are based on Azure artifacts, and I'll show you later on how we're doing that. The release to a specific OneDrive or to MDT or to customers are based on DevOps release pipelines. I'll show you later on. We have a couple of demos today. First will be the example of the template, of the script template we're using. So we have a basic PowerShell script, and our engineers can add it, and they can add the installation parameters needed for the application to be installed. After that is done, they can just upload it to Git. I'll show you right now. It will be seeing like this. So this is the PowerShell script. I have collapsed some of the major parts of it because I want to have a good visible overview of the application or of the template. First of all, we have script information that contains the basics, who created it, what the release notes, private data that's being used by Intune, that kind of stuff. Later on, we have some extra notes, which files we were using during the installation, where we can download the specific sources. And we have some parameters that are necessary to work. I have two big regions in here, the edit package here and the default template. And the default template contains all the functions needed to work in every type of environment. So think of Intune deployments, think of MDT deployments, or WVD deployments. From here, we have a function, and our engineers are filling the function with start install package. I have some examples in here that can be, for example, a process that has a stock process for an MSI. And I have included a very old MSI of 7-zip just so that you can see what the installation parameters are entered by our engineers. If they fill in this one, they also have to fill in the auto update if needed, or the remove package. And remove package is also pretty much the same. Here's an example of FileZilla, and this is a silent installation and a silent deinstallation of the package. We can use the same script to install or deinstall the application we just created or packaged. Just a second. Switching to the next slide, and it should be switching here. So now we have a template and we have a basic understanding of how and why we're using the packages. I'll show you why and the process of creating a package from a PowerShell to a zip file, to a package file. And it will be a DevOps pipeline fully. In this case, I'll start at the beginning. Every time a user or an engineer at our place is uploading scripts or PowerShell scripts, the files will be automatically tested. So for example, we have some test scripts here. This is a function that always runs as soon as a engineer is pushing the code to the Git repo. And every script in there will be automatically tested. Just functional testing and see if the template is up to date, if there is private data in there, if the correct versioning is being used, if there are any best practice errors with PowerShell Analyzer. Those are the basic tests we already run before it even comes into the master repo. We're using the branch strategy Microsoft is also using, and release flows also. After we have tested everything and the branches are merged together, we start a fully automatic upload and signing from the binaries. So first of all, we check out the repo. This is the second part, by the way. So we check out the packages we already have uploaded, we download them, and we sign them. Every package we have here is signed with our signing certificate. And we always also create a catalog file for zip files, because you can sign the zip file directly. And in this case, we always have a cat file needed for the installation, otherwise our script won't work. After we have done that, we just publish the software to an Azure Files, and Azure Files that's fully secure and isolated in Azure, specifically only enabled for the DevOps agents to connect to. I, as an engineer, I cannot connect from anywhere except from the DevOps agent, and that's through pipelines. After everything has been published, we clean up, and we're going to start the script software, generate software package pipeline. What does it mean? It will get the best of both worlds. It will get the zip files that are already signed. It will get the original script files, and it orders them and sorts them in specific folders. The second part is signing again. It's testing it again. So this case, we were testing if the PS1 file is there, the zip file, the cat file, the same template and private data and versioning are applied here. From that moment on, we're just publishing the test results to DevOps, so that we're making sure that we can fill the pipeline if there's any fault in there. Just to be giving you some numbers, there are currently around 220 packages in the repo. And every time a single space has been updated in one of those packages, around 1,500 to 2,000 tests are automatically being run against those packages. Every time. All of them must pass, otherwise the change won't be going to production. From here, we have a comparing versions. We're going to compare if the newly uploaded versions here are already in the isolated release part. So we can skip it, and if it's newer, then we're going to process it. We are processing Intune Win files. We're generating them, fully automatic. I think I have here just one. It will create a folder, it will generate the Intune Win file, and it will also, sorry, this one. And it will also give you some commands to upload it automatically. This is for engineers that are connecting with the Intune sample commandlet from PowerShell. They can just enter this with the correct sources, obviously, and just upload it to the customer portals. From this moment on, we also generate the exe files. This will contain all the files needed to install, and we upload it also. From here on, we just clean up the pipeline. And just to give you an example, this is the view we have in the Azure Artifacts. It will contain all our packages. And from a package, we also contain at least 10 versions, sorry. So from every package, we have an history of at least 10 versions. From here, you can see how many times it's been downloaded or used in either the WVD pipeline or in an Intune release. And specifically by multiple pipelines, you can see the number of users in here. That's the basic for the DevOps pipeline. At least the packages view we have at VMware. We also have a fully automated image management pipeline made in YAML. What it does, it deploys the VM, it installs a set of applications, and I have it described as P1, so it's part 1. And we have it in 2 parts because we have some customers that have specific consultants that need to do something manually and they're not automating stuff and that kind of way. So after the P1, we have a manual intervention. So we install applications that are not being updated regularly. And after that, the consultant can do its thing. We create an artifact image. The artifact image is something that you generate once a half year or once a year. Once you have an artifact image, we have an automated process that deploys the artifact image in a VM in Azure. It installs all the applications that can be automated. And from that moment on, we create a master image. The master image will be deployed to a shared image gallery. And in the shared image gallery, we can deploy it to a WVD host or a separate VM to test or whatsoever. And with the process from the classic one to the YAML version, I got a notice, and I thought it was nice to mention here. Normally, the release flow tells you to do small release updates in master. And I was building this very long, I think a couple of months. So I had over 100 commits and 100 runs with testing before I could even merge my feature into the master repo. And apparently, it's something you should double check by Microsoft, so you get a nice warning in here. So let's start the demo then. I need to mention this. This is a video of 8 minutes. I will be narrating it here. But normally the process will take about an hour. And yeah, I don't want to keep you waiting. So this is my demo pipeline, my demo environment. And from here, I will start a new run from my YAML pipeline. Like I mentioned, I have the manual intervention switch there. I have a manual run, and that's the application P1, and it's optional. You can do it manually. That's why we call it manual. The application P2 parts will always be done automatically. So if you schedule the pipeline, it will run every time you schedule it, only the part 2. All the parameters in here are being used for the applications, and I will show you later on in the next demo on how and why I'm doing this. For now, you can just have a look at it. We also have a switch for internal and external pipelines. We can deploy this pipeline and the templates to an external tenant and make sure it runs from there. And it will connect back to our tenant for some specific PowerShell scripts and make sure that everything works accordingly. So these are all the steps that are being taken during the deployment. First, we're going to validate the template to make sure that everything works. Later on, we're going to deploy. The first steps will also be configuring shared image gallery. If it's the first time, it will create everything. If it's the second or third time or whatsoever, it will be updating the settings as long as at the settings we want. So it's a complete deployment again. So like I said, stage first, publish it to pipeline artifact that will be used later on. This is important because we don't want to do the checkout on every stage. We just want to have a specific set of an artifact that is going to be used later on. And it's also making sure that network traffic is being kept to a minimum. As you can see, all the stages here are visible, and now it's going to make sure that the versioning number is being updated. In the top, you can see a version that's default by Microsoft, and I've updated it with a specific one I want. So 21 for the year, 003 for the month, and the 0.19 is just the increment of the number of runs. I've already done this month, of last month, I need to tell you. So when the versioning has been done, it's also being deploying the shared image gallery itself, and it's being sped up a lot because, yeah, like I said, I only have a 30-minute window and I don't want to bother everyone. After the shared image gallery has been deployed. We're going to deploy an artifact image from the shared image gallery. Like I said, I already have an artifact image and it's been deployed. It's just a regular ARM JSON file, and it's deploying with the parameters we want. There it goes. And I think it should take a few minutes normally. I think 3-4 minutes is the normal deployment time. And like I said, all the applications will be installed later on, and I'll talk you through it. Like I said, we have all the packages in Azure Artifact, and I'll be using a PowerShell script that downloads the artifacts with Azure CLI and installs it. For now, it's downloading external. So because it's my demo pipeline, it's downloading our PowerShell script with all logics. And for now, here you can see it's downloading Azure Adobe Acrobat Reader, and it's being installed within the VM. It's just an invoke command with some specific parameters to our PowerShell script with a passkey to make sure that my personal access token is being used in the deployment. So it normally takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes per application, depending on the size of it. If you're deploying Autodesk, for example, it will take 30 minutes, or Exact will be also around that. But normal small applications like Adobe Chrome, 3-4 minutes. That's why I use them in the demo, and even FS Logics is also being installed within a minute. After I've installed the applications, we'll be optimizing it, and that's called Seal Master 1 and Seal Master Part 2. I also have the option to restart before and restart after, and I'll show you that later on in the pipeline itself. And I switched back and forth there. In the Seal Master Part 2, there's the sysprep being built in, and make sure that everything is prepped before we can create an image. It usually takes up to 5 minutes because we also have a wait period in there that makes sure that sysprep is ready before it shuts down the VM. And after the machine is being sysprepped, we're going to start the create master image. And that are certain steps that deallocate the machine. It also generalizes the machine, and after that it will just create the image itself. As you can see, it's been sped up a lot because it's been 10 minutes already. And I think it was showing it to you because during the process, I'll show you the shared image gallery as an example of how it's been looking during the deployment. And during the day of the recording, we had some pipeline incidents, so everything was being slow. So like you can see, deallocate, generalize, and create image. The create image itself can take up to 20-30 minutes these days. And as you can see here, I have the image. It's the same as my build image in status creating. Notice the versioning 2103.19. That's also being used in the deployment itself. And this way we can also deploy session hosts with this version, the same as the deployment of the build ID of the pipeline itself. Well, it's speeding up right now. I love to do it in real time with some image creation. I think a lot of you would love to do the same. And yeah, Jim, we're using Pester for testing. If anyone has questions, just feel free to break in and ask me anything. I'll just pause everything and answer questions. And the demo of the video itself is 8 minutes. So after this, I'll show you the YAML files itself. No, I'll do that in the end, by the way. So from here, after the image has been created, we obviously need to remove it because otherwise it will be polluting everything in Azure and we don't want that. So at the end of the entire pipeline, we just sit there with an extra image in our shared image gallery. Fully hands-off, because all the applications that are being used in here are pulled from our Azure artifact store we used in the software DevOps or in our software repository I showed you earlier on. Yeah, and like I see a demo here, you can just create a VM from the specific image or deploy it any way you want. So in this demo, I still had the image management separated from the deployment of the WVD host. Currently, we also have the deployment or in the same pipeline as the demo, but it was too late for the demo today. And as you can see, everything is done here. Everything is green, and I can't show you the test results in here, but I'll show you the pipeline later on. Now we're switching back to the PowerPoint. The last part is the classic release. And with the classic release, I mean the not YAML pipelines. And let's switch to my browser again. So I have an example here that does basically the same. It starts a new image, it deploys an RN template, it installs applications. From there, it creates an image. Also, the WVD management portal, shared image gallery are being done. And from this moment on, we can just approve it for a test and deploy it later on. I'll show you the difference between classic and between YAML. If we go to the edit release, in this case, I can show you the task for an application. As soon as I click on install updates, you can see it's just an Azure CLI being used. And in this case, it will run this command. And yeah, we just copy everything for all the applications we need. And it's a lot of work if you want to create a new pipeline. So what have we done to make sure we don't need to copy everything down every time we update it or we have a new customer whatsoever? I'll show you here. We have two parts of a template. We have a backbone template and we have or a backbone pipeline, and the backbone pipeline exists of a lot of stages. The stages I just showed you in the demo. We also have some templates. The templates, I will show you the install apps template later on. First, let's talk to the basics. We have a trigger. Every time a release is being pushed or something has changed into a release branch, it will automatically start the pipeline. So as soon as I create a new branch called release / and give it a version number or a name, it will automatically run the pipeline for the specific customer. In this case, it's a test because I'm demoing everything and I don't want to share customer data with you. We have a lot of parameters we use in the deployment. And a parameter can be very simple, like a shared image gallery name. We have a display name, we have a type string, in this case a space filled in, because I have logic later on that determines if it's being used or not. We have to validate and publish. We have to deploy public gallery, and we have test via main and remove test. This is for pull request. We have a configure shared image gallery, and we have versioning. And I will show you the installation part 2 or 1 in this case. What I'm doing in this stage is I'm calling a template, and the template is in the folder image management, and it's called install apps.yaml. I'll give a lot of parameters with the template, and most of them are a variable or a parameter, and there's difference between them. A parameter is something you just saw in the video, and that's in the beginning. That's everything you can fill in ad hoc and has default values. So for example, the shared image gallery name is a parameter and has the default of a space. And if you want to have the applications P2, this is an example of an object. which have default values like Adobe Acrobat Reader and FS Logics. A variable is this one. Everything you see here is just dummy, even the passwords, and this is for a test which will be created and removed later on within 2-3 minutes. So you can see what I'm typing in here. From here, we have some expressions we use for the versioning, and as you can maybe decipher it, is you have a pipeline start time, and you will format the date time in 2 years, and here 2 months, and we have a counter that combines them. Furthermore, we have all the variables needed in every single deployment, even for the deployment to a WVD host pool, and this all being used, and those are this kind. So basically, I don't have any fixed data in here. Right, as you can see, I only do this once, and I have a lot of applications in here. So how am I doing that? Well, because I'm using an object, I can do logic, like for every object in this list. I can start a deployment or reboot the machine or install anything, and this is the logic behind it. We have the object here, passed as a parameter, and I have here an example, which can contain the name, if it needs to be auto-updated, and that's specific for our packages, which version of the package I want to deploy, if we need a reboot or a pre-reboot, so if we want to reboot before installing, username, password, general switches, or something you want to give to the application. We have an install source, and if you want to skip it during the deployment, you start it manually. So as soon as we're coming by the first step, it will check if it's an internal or external pipeline. It's equal or not equal. So I'll skip that part. I'm going to the logic of for each app in parameters applications. So remember, like what I said, I have Adobe Reader DC and I have FS Logics in here. So each app, in this case we have 2, will be looping through this entire part of code. And for each app, it will check if it has the skip functionality. So we just do app.skip. And the second part will be if it needs a pre-reboot through, then it will start an Azure CLI, and that contains Azure VM restart. It's not that hard. And that's basically logic for everything here. The second part will be installing, and the third part will be restart after. And even if you have 100 apps in here, it will loop through everything with just 135 lines of code, which even includes some comments. In the basic, that's the thing we need to deploy applications. Well, I'll do the same for sysprepping and for creating an image. And I want to show you the management portal, for example. It's also a JSON file. Deployment of the host pool, the application pool, the workspace itself. It's just a JSON file in complete mode. Assignments are not being included in the template, so you can just safely have all your settings in your JSON file and deploy it every time you want. And from that moment on, we can use the Microsoft templates to deploy the image. And in this case, we have it here. This is the virtual machine template JSON. This is the one from GitHub, I think 6 months ago. It asks a lot of information from you, and we also have it already all available in the variables. So that's why we can deploy it easily. So that's the basic deployment, the difference between the YAML pipeline and the classic pipeline. And like I said, all the stages are being done, and we have logic in here that has conditions like result is succeeded from the previous stage, and this way it will follow everything through. So those were my in-depth demos. I hope everyone followed me. If you're new to YAML pipelines or DevOps in general, always start with the docs.microsoft.com. I also have some key concepts which I can share you later on, or you can type it over if you want, which will contain some basic naming of the objects used in Azure DevOps. And the latter link is the difference between variables and how to give them through stages, jobs, tasks, or whatsoever. I highly recommend to read them both if you're starting with YAML pipelines, because it will help you further in your deployment. That's it for me. And I hope it was informative for you. And yeah, I would like to share more for you if you want. Any questions or comments whatsoever?
That was awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
We've got a question from Jim.
Yeah.
Have you thought about including Azure Image Builder as part of your pipeline?
We have thought about it, but we already had this in place before Azure Image Builder was announced, even in preview. And we have looked at it, and it's a nice feature to have, but we don't have the need for now because we have everything in Azure DevOps already. And it's shifting some of the logic from Azure DevOps to the Azure Image Builder, which we already have. So for us, it's not there yet, including the application sources needs to be somewhere Azure Image Builder can reach, and Azure DevOps already has the tokens for our Azure artifacts. So it will be more complex for us to build than the way we have it now.
Okay, cool, good answer. And another question from Jim.
Sure.
And this was my question as well, because I've spent most of my time in GitHub recently. Have you tried GitHub Actions yet?
I have seen it, but I haven't done anything with it yet because, like I said, I have everything in Azure DevOps already, and I'm doing a lot of with triggered pipelines and everything there. So I see the GitHub Actions, and I've tested it with a simple static website, and it looks pretty similar. And I think it has a lot of potential, and I think Microsoft is also going that way. But for now, I've not done a lot with it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing a split. I'm not sure, Jim, if you see people also having that split as well, but I tend to see people sort of gravitate. Like I love Azure DevOps because I love the logical like approval gates and things that you can put in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do love those, and a lot of people start out there, like you say. It was great, and then I've started doing net new projects in GitHub for now, just more for a personal perspective. So it's a good question as well. That's brilliant. We do have some more good questions. So
sure.
Rachel reminded me a lot of what platform.sh do as PAS under the underhood. So okay, so it looks very similar to platform.sh. I don't know platform.sh.
Me neither. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, this is a great question. I love this as well. I always ask myself before I start something, right, what's the cost or what's the benefit?
We started it, I think the moment WVD was announced, and we started it with just the templates and a simple pipeline that can deploy it. And that took us a couple of weeks with not fully dedicated time. So one day a week for a couple of weeks, and we had the basics. And the basics are earning itself back because we already have customers in there. And the deployment to YAML was more time consuming. I think the entire time spent there is about 3 months, and like 1 day a week, a half day a week, every time on. So you need to start getting into the code, and as soon as you're in there, you need to get out again. And that way it's just step by step. Definitely. And the last month, I think, was the most productive one because I dedicatedly had 1 day, full day to a week to spend through it. And now we're spending more time in it, and we're seeing more potential, and not just only for image management or WVD, but pretty much every infrastructure thing we can do in Azure are doing it through Azure pipelines at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I see some other secondary benefits as well, which quickly become primary benefits, which is self-documenting.
Yeah, obviously.
So if you ever bring a new person in, it's not a case of, oh, did anyone write the docs? They're there. It's self-documenting exactly what it is, so you can get people up and running much faster. And also configuration drift. So all the deployments are very, apart from the custom bits you might need to do, but it becomes more maintainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's nice. And the version management is very cool because you can just use the best of kit and branching and the release flow, everything is in there. And your full pipeline is in there also. So every change you make, you can just test it to a dummy environment just before you do the pull request to master or main. And it gives you a lot of flexibility and testing purposes. And yeah, it's just something I'm pretty excited about. I'm just doing it for a year now. And currently I'm doing it for a very big customer in Holland. And yeah, it's great. I'm fully dedicated week of DevOps pipelines building, and yeah, it's nice.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. I love seeing stuff like that. I actually haven't spent any time in a portal for a while at the moment because I'm using a lot of code. So Jim comes up with another good question. So one obviously sends you a big virtual pat on the back, says great demo, enjoyed it very much.
Thank you.
Obviously you shared your secret source in a way, right? So he said, are they available? Is there any sort of public?
No, I don't have them. I don't have them publicly because we're using them internally, and it's some of our services we're offering to customers. And I don't mind sharing parts of it, but I'm not showing you everything yet. And I like to do demos and showing parts of it. And if people can recreate it, that's fine. But we're not giving you away our pipeline. Sorry,
we're not doing your work. Yeah, exactly. So again, we appreciate you sharing it with your community. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's brilliant.
And if anyone has questions around creating YAML or need help with it, just give a shout out. We love to help. I love to help. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Brilliant. And thanks again. And to both presenters, to yourself and to Stuart. Thank you for being so flexible as well, because just to share with everyone on the group, when we had first planned this, everyone had a very stringent 30-minute section, but due to one of the presenters having to drop out, obviously I think they've done a great job of being flexible and offering us a little bit more time, which is fantastic. So yeah, Jim put the comment in there. I'll just let you read that one. I won't ask that one out.
How many tabs do I need to make YAML work? Well, I think a normal day of a single stage or step creating takes about 30 tabs. So I have how many stages here? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 stages, which contain at least 7 or 8 steps. So you do the math.
a lot
more than your memory can handle.
Yeah. It's not how many tabs, it's how many screens do you need. That's the actual question. Yeah,
I have 4 and I have too little.
Brilliant. Cool. You know what, great I love seeing stuff like that as well. So are there any other questions from anyone on the group? It's obviously a great session from both. I think we're all good for tonight. So I'm going to say that obviously Neil couldn't be with us. He would usually tell us what's coming up. I actually have no idea because that's what he does so great. So we'll be sure to make sure that we message everyone. The recording is obviously done. We'll share that, and anything shareable we will share. So the presentations, if that's okay, or at least contact details so that we can get a good conversation going. And once again, thank you to all the presenters for just doing such a fantastic job. Happy Easter, everyone. Hopefully, if you get some time off, great. If you don't, then I promise I'll be thinking about you as I relax for the next 4 days. And yeah, thanks again, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and see you the next time. So thank you very much. Cheers, everyone.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.